there, everybody. Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen here, leading the movement for movement, and welcome to another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, where we take a concept or strategy in autism fitness programming and the PAC profile methodology and break it down, understanding how we apply that concept or strategy in autism fitness programming, whether you're running one-to-one, small group, or adapted PE programs, or anything in between there. So before we get started, please like, subscribe, and if this video would help somebody else out in your circle, share it as well. So in this edition, we're going to be talking about when an athlete can be independent with their fitness program or their fitness curriculum. Now, independence is a huge concept and big discussion among the autism world. And the reasons are plentiful and the reasons are great. We want to give more opportunities for our individuals to be independent. And of course, that's going to vary because the spectrum of capabilities within the autism population is so vast. And even for one individual, capabilities are going to vary significantly. So we're just going to narrow in on the fitness and movement component of it, talking primarily about being able to follow a fitness program independently. And that's something that comes up. It's certainly a question that I've been asked in the past, so I thought I would address it in this video. So when we talk about independence, we have to operationally define what we mean by independence with relevance or with respect to physical fitness. What do we mean? Do we mean that the individual can follow a routine? Does it mean that they're going to be independent with a particular exercise? So I think the best way to break this down is to, of course, go back to our Autism Fitness PAC profile. That's physical, adaptive, and cognitive functioning. Each of these are the one of the three skill sets that we are assessing, addressing in our programming. So when we look at it from these three areas, we can start to discover how this is going to relate to an individual and where they can be more independent and where they're going to need more support as well. So it's like many things, not going to be an all or nothing. Really, it's going to come down to, for that particular individual, what does it mean? So let's start with physical. Oftentimes, as you may know, with our autism and neurodivergent population, there are some significant strength and stability and motor quality deficits that we need to address in fitness programming. Among these, in particular, are our strength-based movements. So our squats, our pulls, our carries, our pushes. Oftentimes, and this is the reason why it's so important to understand how we are going to progress and, more importantly, modify each exercise. Oftentimes, we're going to have to modify or simplify that exercise in order for the athlete to do it comfortably and capably, and for that exercise to have as great a benefit as it possibly can. So they may not be starting off completely independent with that overhead press, for example. If that's the case, even if eventually we want that athlete to be able to perform that fitness routine on their own, right now their physical capability doesn't necessarily allow them to perform that whole routine themselves. And we're just talking about the physical right now as well. What is most likely to happen over the weeks and months and years that they're performing that fitness program is they're going to become more capable and then more independent with certain exercises, and perhaps still need some coaching and cueing and support around others. For example, you might have an athlete who becomes highly proficient with a standing band row or with an overhead press. However, they still need a modified version of the squat, and they still need a modified variation of, let's say, a scoop throw, for example. So in this case, the athlete, although they are starting to develop some of these skills independently and they don't need that physical prompt, they don't need that additional guidance, they are not 100% capable or independent with all of the exercises. So they still need that coaching and they still need that support with some of the most important exercises that they're doing. So we have a certain measure of independence in that situation, but not totally. So that's where we're starting physically. Let's go to adaptive and motivational, which is oftentimes the biggest predictor of how much support an athlete is going to need. Not always, but it's often a place that we start. Exercise also, often being, if not outright aversive, but not necessarily the most reinforcing thing on the planet for many of our autism life skill athletes. We need to take that into consideration, right? Now, we can generalize this to the neurotypical population also. How many people out there are routinely going to the gym and getting in an effective, and I mean effective, training session also? So we have to think about that. How often do we see this in the general population? We see it, but the statistics are pretty low. So that motivation needs to be there in order for this individual to participate on a regular and meaningful basis in that fitness program. So the independence is going to also coincide with the level of motivation and the level of reinforcing quality that fitness routine has. So that's another big consideration. The other part of that, if we're going to dial it in, is whether or not the athlete is motivated to do all of the exercises that belong in their program or some of the exercises that belong in their program. All right. Third, we get to cognitive functioning. So cognitive functioning, of course, in the Autism Fitness PAC profile, we divide into neurological, that's memory and communication, and the neuromuscular, that's kinesthetic awareness and body positioning. So and this is a big deal in terms of independence, most of us need some objective and well-trained expert, if you will, eye on our movement as well, because it's very difficult to coach yourself. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that some or many people can't be independent with their exercise programs, but oftentimes it helps where possible to have a coach, right? That's what it exists for. Well, one of the reasons. So if this being the case, having that objective, educated, expert viewpoint of a coach is going to be greatly enhancing to the program, number one, for that body positioning, and number two, for the program as a whole. So if we're developing a fitness routine for an individual with autism who is neurodivergent, we also have to take into consideration how are they going to follow this routine. If they're great at a visual schedule, that is a big bonus, and then they can follow along, maybe check it off when they've completed that exercise. So you can have someone who is great at following that routine. However, the other consideration is, are they able to sustain a high quality movement pattern with that standing band row or with that squat or with that overhead press when they do not have another expert set of eyes watching them and someone to guide them through. So we're dealing not with all or nothing with respect to independence with that fitness routine, but we have to look where independence makes sense for that individual. Now, I'm going to give you the best case scenario because we've gone through the physical, so we have to examine which exercises are independently mastered, which are not, which are still being modified, and which need more structure and also more coaching and cueing from the coach or instructor. And then we have the adaptive, how motivated is this individual to participate, meaning this particular exercise or the program as a whole. And then finally, we have the cognitive, which is body positioning, kinesthetic awareness, and then communication, being able to follow the routine. All very important. Best case scenario is we have an athlete who is being coached on a regular basis. That could be 1, 2, 3, even more times a week. And they've mastered enough of the exercises independently that they can start generalizing them to different environments, different instructors, or even perform some of them independently on their own as their own recreational fitness routine. I think this is the best case scenario, even for the neurotypical population too. I mean, in the utopia of fitness programming, everybody would have a coach who could give them feedback and adequate, at least adequate or great programming if we're going the utopian route, great programming and regular input and, change to the program where it needs to be modified or it needs to be progressed wherever. And then there are things that the individual can do on their own. So it doesn't differ all that much from the ideal scenario for someone on the autism spectrum or who is neurodivergent. In this case, we have a coach developing the program, overseeing everything, giving feedback, making sure that the program is working for that athlete and they are getting the most possible out of it. And there are certain exercises, maybe 4, 5, 6 exercises that the individual can do either at home with a parent or a family member, or they can do in a school classroom with a special educator or a speech therapist or someone else as a break routine or as a stress reduction routine. And or then there are exercises that they can do on their own at home, again, for a great fitness and health routine, as opposed to, being on a screen all day. Some of you are probably nodding your head in agreement at this point. So these are things that come up. So in conclusion, the independence question, in as much as when can this person do this fitness routine completely independent of a coach, it may not necessarily be a completely independent program for all those reasons that I already mentioned. We're looking at the physical, the adaptive, and the cognitive, and they're not always going to all align in perfect synchronicity to make for a situation where the athlete can be completely independent. But if we look at the neurotypical world, that is also true, albeit sometimes to a lesser extent. If you've ever been to a commercial gym, you know what I'm talking about. There are plenty of people there who, even though they are doing something, it fails to be working out in any meaningful sense. They're moving around a lot. We see a lot of moving around a lot. And again, we're talking about the neurotypical population. But that aside, we do have opportunity to create these successes around building in a new independent routine for an individual once they have mastered some of these exercises. So the keys here are similar to the keys in many other situations that we have in autism fitness programming. Is we want to be consistent, we want the exercises to be as reinforcing as possible, and we want to continue developing the fundamental skills so that the athlete has practiced them enough that they can generalize those skills, the pushing, the pulling, the squatting, the carrying, to other areas of their life. That's the whole reason that we're doing fitness program, among others, but that's the most important one. So the key here is understanding independence as differing factors, but it's also going to play into each individual's routine differently. And the goal may not necessarily be getting 100% independent from the program, because we probably want an expert in charge of that program, because over time it should change just a little bit depending on that athlete's abilities and their short and long-term goals. But we, in my opinion, the goal that we should look for is having enough exercises mastered that the athlete can take this routine, part of it, and do it in the home, in the school, in their daily self-care practice. And then, since they're practicing it more during the week as the coach, as the professional, that skill is probably being developed even further and further and further, so we can work on some more challenging exercises or variations of those exercises when we get back to our fitness program. So to close this out, independence is not all or nothing. There are going to be various ways that we can set independent goals in the program. So looking for your own athletes and in your own programs, where can you build in some even small measures of independence for your athletes? And if there are ways that you found or something that you found helpful in this video and it is working for you, please leave them in the comments below. Would love to see them. And If you have an idea, if you have a question, if you have a subject that you'd like me to cover in a future Autism Fitness Tuesday training, leave that in the comments below as well. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, here leading the movement for movement. If you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, then head on over to autismfitness.com. You can register. We have both virtual and in-person dates coming up. Exciting, because you can attend from your home or gym or school, or you can be there live with me. And that's all I got for you. So thank you for watching. Again, please like, subscribe, share this video, and thank you for watching.